Good morning, Triangle Center for Spiritual Living community.
Good morning.
Hi, how are you doing? We're so happy to have you here with us today. We wish that we could be with you together in person, but this is the next best thing, and we love having you here with us. I have a few announcements that I'd like to start off with. Join us today for our virtual lunch bunch immediately following the completion of the celebration service at approximately about 12:15. Make yourself something to eat and join in the fellowship on Zoom. The Zoom conference number and contact information is in your weekly bulletin that you get on Wednesday mornings. Last Sunday, Reverend Dusty addressed the question, "What can I do?" Today, the invitation is to join the CSL Minister, Practitioner, and Member Councils and the Diversity Inclusion Commission, supported by the CSL Licensing and Credentialing Department and the Spiritual Development Education Department, as they create an opportunity to dive deeply into the heart of unconscious bias and racism, and to learn how we can make a difference at this pivotal time in history. They have selected the book, Me and White Supremacy: Combat Racism, Change the World, and Become a Good Ancestor by Layla Saad. The book is a reflective 28-day inward journey that will be supported by this 5-session book study experience. The invitation is to accept this invitation to do the personal work towards greater inclusion, allyship, and healing in a supportive group environment. Registration is now open and there is no fee to attend. The practitioner book study will be held on 5 consecutive Monday evenings, beginning August 3rd at 8 p.m., and the congregational book study will be held on 5 consecutive Tuesday evenings, beginning August 4th at 8 p.m. An announcement with links to register was sent on Friday, June 25th, and another one will be sent out this week on Monday. The Triangle Center for Spiritual Living is pleased to announce a live streaming concert by the Offbeats as a benefit for A Place at the Table, a local pay-what-you-can cafe that provides community and healthy food for all regardless of means. During this time of COVID-19, more people than ever are showing up at their doors in need of meals. Unfortunately, while in normal times patrons can volunteer in exchange for their food, that isn't possible right now due to social distancing and other health standards during this pandemic. APAT also recently expanded their space and their menu, takeout only for the present time, to provide even more meals to our community. Let's support them in their quest to ensure that meals are available to everyone during these difficult times. The Offbeats are a local college student band, and they will be playing a variety of summer-oriented classic rock songs that are appropriate for the entire family. All ages are invited to join us. The band is playing on a love offering basis. A $10 donation covers the entire cost of one meal. How many meals can we provide through contributions on that evening? Even if you can't tune in on July 29th, please consider making a donation by mail or online. Donations by mail can be sent checks payable to TCSL, and the mailing address is Triangle Center for Spiritual Living, 4000 Bearcat Way, that's Bearcat Way, in Morrisville, North Carolina, 27560. It's now time for me to give the June financial update. The total collections for the month of June was $1,591. The total June income, okay, 15,000. Okay. It was 15,000 and some odd dollars. The total June income is $13,269. And the total June expenditures were $16,016. This leaves us a net revenue of negative $2,748. It is my pleasure at this time to introduce licensed spiritual practitioner Heather Abbott.
Thank you, Jim. Good morning. I am now going to read this community's purpose statement. This is our reason for being here. Our purpose is to inspire, educate, and empower individuals to experience themselves as unique and individualized expressions of God, the love intelligence that governs the universe. We are committed to not merely a theoretical understanding of our oneness and unity with God, but to consciously practice this truth in our everyday lives. Through celebration, service, study, and fellowship, we are committed to the transformation of our personal lives and to being a powerful and beneficial presence on the planet. With the energy of unconditional love, simply, we are here for God. Now I would like to invite you to close your outer eyes and turn within, allowing these healing sounds to wash over you.
I invite you to begin to bring your attention back into your bodies and into your rooms and remain turned within as I speak a word of invocation upon our service. Truly not invoking the presence of Spirit, for the presence of Spirit is always present. It is the very essence of love, peace, joy, abundance, creativity, wisdom, and grace. I know that it is everywhere at all times, in its fullness and in its wholeness, and energy with no circumference and points of center everywhere. I know that I am one of those points, that I was created by it out of itself in a moment of unconditional love. And just as I know that this is my truth, I know that it is true for each and every person within the sound of my voice. Each of us is a unique and divine expression of the One, and ambassador of its presence, of its peace, of its joy, of its creativity, of its wisdom, of its freedom, of its grace. And it is from that place of unity that I bless our time together, truly knowing that it is a divine appointment that God is having through and as us individually and collectively, and that it flows with grace and ease from beginning to end. I bless Mark as he holds down the AV booth and makes sure that we look and sound good today. I bless Heather and Jim as the practitioners, knowing that they bring their depth of consciousness and their love for this community to everything that they do and say today, that they inspire us. And I bless Deborah as she comes forward to share her gift of music for the very first time with our community today. So grateful for her presence, for her light, and for her beautiful songs. I bless each and every person on Facebook Live and Zoom. So grateful for this community and the loving support that we are for each other on our spiritual path. And so for all of the blessings, those that I'm aware of and those I can't even begin to imagine, I am grateful. We anchor this together simply by saying, "And so it is." Amen. It is now my pleasure to welcome back to the podium licensed spiritual practitioner and ministerial school student, Jim Rigsby.
And now is the time for the blessing of all faiths. We honor the traditions of all faiths, as is recognized through this ceremony. Christianity is the path of Christ consciousness, love, and forgiveness. Buddhism is the path of compassion and understanding. Judaism is the ethical path of living by sacred law. Baha'i is the path of unity and peace. Islam is the path of submission to the will of God, the highest calling. Confucianism is the path of deliberate tradition. And Taoism is the natural way, the path of ultimate reality. Native American practice and shamanic traditions are the paths of primal spirituality. Shintoism is the path of tribal ancestry. Hinduism is the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. Science of mind and spirit is the path of the divine principle of love and law. And the heart represents the one heart, the one love that resides at the center of all people and all beings everywhere with no exceptions. May peace prevail on earth through the followers of all paths. And so it is. Today's reading is from Ernest Holmes. He says, "Man already has within himself the key to freedom, but must come to realize his relation to the whole. The relationship is one of unity. In mind there is perfect freedom, and that in this freedom nothing can bind him, either mentally or physically, like nothing which he ever did or that anyone else did or thought can bind him, that the very life of God is freedom, and this life and action compels him to act out the truth about himself on the objective plane." So just turn within one more moment. As I speak a blessing today on Reverend Dusty and Deborah as they come forward, just recognizing this beautiful day. Breathing in the breath of spirit, knowing that it animates my body, my mind, and my spirit. That I am one with it and never can be separate from it. And as that is true for me, I know that it is true for everyone. That each is a unique divine expression of God, perfect just the way that they are, and that they can never be separate from it. For Spirit is always with us in everything we do. And so from the space of unity, I speak a blessing today upon Reverend Dusty as she comes forward to deliver the message today, knowing that it speaks to our hearts and our minds and lifts our hearts forever. And I speak my word of blessing on Deborah, knowing that as she comes forward to share her gift of song, that it's magnificent and beautiful and raises our spirits. So I'm grateful for Reverend Dusty and Deborah for their gifts and their talents and coming forward today. And so I just simply allow this to be, and so it is. So without further ado, Here is Deborah.
This ain't coming from no prophet. No, I'm just an ordinary woman. But when I close my eyes, I see the way this world shall be when we all walk hand in hand. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. When the last child cries for a crust of bread, when the last man dies for just words that he said, when there's shelter over the poorest head, we shall be free. When the last thing we notice is the color of skin, and the first thing we look for is the beauty within. When the skies and the ocean are clean again, oh yes, we shall be free. Whoa, 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 we shall be free. Oh, we shall be free. Stand tall, stand proud, we shall be free. When we're free to love anyone we choose, when this world's big enough for all different views, when we all can worship from our very own pew, oh, we shall be free. Yeah, yeah, we shall be free. Whoa, whoa, we shall be free. Come on, have faith, stand tall, we shall be free. Whoa, 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 we shall be free. And when money talks for the very last time, and no one walks a step behind, when there's only one love, that's mankind, oh, we shall be free. Whoa, whoa, we shall be free. Yeah, yeah, we shall be free. Come on, stand tall, stand proud. Oh, we shall be free. Yeah, come on. Oh, we shall be free. Oh, yes, we will. We shall be free. Everybody, stand tall, hold on, we shall be free. We shall be free. Yeah, yeah, oh, we shall be free. Everybody stay strong, hold on, we shall be free. Woo!
Thank you so very much, Deborah. That was awesome. Very nice. Welcome to Zoom and Facebook Live, Triangle Center for Spiritual Living. I also welcome you, and I also echo Jim. It's so great that we're able to come together on Sundays like this. I miss everyone, and I just, in my mind's eye, imagine having you sitting out here in front of me, and that makes it a little bit easier. So, freedom. The theme for the month of July is untethered spirituality. And today we're talking, actually the whole entire month, we are talking about this idea of freedom. Freedom is defined in the dictionary as the state of being free or at liberty rather than in confinement. Freedom is exemption from external control, interference, or regulation. It is the power to determine action without restraint. In the book Freedom, The Courage to Be Yourself, Osho, a 20th century mystic from India, says that freedom is a three-dimensional phenomenon. Now, the first dimension is physical dimension. We can be enslaved physically. Men and women all over the world have been and continue to be enslaved physically through the thoughts and actions of others. For thousands of years, men and women have been sold and bought in the marketplace. Slavery in the United States was the legitimate institution of human enslavement, primarily of Native Africans or Black Americans, that existed from the beginning of the nation in 1776 until the passage of the 13th Amendment in 1865, which made it illegal. Yet slaves have and continue to exist all over the world. Much of India and China are still living in slavery. Physical freedom means that your body is not enchained, that you are not thought of as any less than anyone else, that your body is equal to everyone else's body. The second dimension is the psychological dimension. Now, what comes up for me around the psychological dimension is Don Miguel Ruiz's idea of domestication that he talks about in his book, The Four Agreements. What he says is that we arrive on the planet innocent, a blank slate, open and available to the allness of possibility. Soon thereafter, however, the domestication begins. Now, domestication is the process in which we are taught how to live within the rules, regulations, and belief systems of the family, the culture, the race, the nation, or the religion into which we were born. In the beginning, when we were very young, we didn't really have a choice. We were simply taught by everyone in our world, our parents, our grandparents, our siblings, our teachers, and even our friends. We were taught how to live, how to behave, and what to believe, and we bought into it because it felt so darn good when we were rewarded for being good, and it felt so uncomfortable when we were punished for being bad. So over time, we gave away our power. We gave away our freedom. We became slaves to political ideologies, to social ideologies, and to religious ideologies, and we were forced into a particular mold. Osho says, psychological freedom will be possible when children are allowed to grow, help to grow more intellect, more intelligence, more consciousness, more alertness. No belief will be given to them. They will not be taught any kind of faith, but will be given as much incentive as possible to search for the truth. And they will be reminded from the very beginning, your own truth, your own finding is going to liberate you. Nothing else can do that for you. But what about those of us that did not grow up in that way, but instead fell under the fog of domestication, or the ideas and the beliefs that we were given, or the beliefs that we created for ourselves out of the experiences of our lives? What about those of us? Reverend Mark Anthony Lord says most people don't know that they're trapped in prison, and why should they? They go where they want to go, they do what they want to do, and they even have the things that they want to have. They move through the world apparently free while at the same time living in bondage to the voices of resentment, fear, blame, judgment, and regret. If it were just the voices, then that might make it easier, but the voices become expressed in their lives as painful or broken relationships, addictions, money problems, physical disease, and emotional turmoil and depression. Awareness is the key. Therefore, the invitation is for each of us to do the work to discover the ideas and the beliefs that we hold to be true, and then to ask ourselves, do I really believe this? Is this idea true for me? Does this belief enslave me, or does it liberate me? The invitation is to be willing to let loose anything that does not affirm freedom, that does not affirm the truth, to be willing to do the work to let go of the resentments, the blame, the judgment, the regrets, and the fears that hold us hostage. When we were children, we had no choice, but as adults, we do have a choice in the matter. We can continue to be enslaved in the psychological dimension, or we can be free. In a foreword to a book called Prisoners of Our Thoughts by Alex Patakos, Stephen Covey, who wrote the foreword, writes about the 3 lines that really resonated with him from the book. Now, those lines read, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom and our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our happiness." In that space of freedom, we are able to choose our responses and the impact that it may have on our lives. Can you get that? We truly have the power and the freedom to shape our experiences. Now, this does not mean that we should deny what we are going through, only that we can choose our response to it, and that is and there is amazing freedom in that ability. There are many examples of ordinary people making extraordinary choices when finding themselves in physical or psychological slavery. Viktor Frankl, for example, was a man who spent 3 years in the German concentration camps between the years 1942 and 1945. He and all of the others that were forced into the camps were imprisoned both physically and psychologically, stripped of the freedoms, of most of the freedoms that we take for granted in our own lives. They were left with what Viktor Frankl calls the last of the human freedoms, and that is the ability to choose their attitude in response to their life circumstances. Now, had he not adopted this optimistic, affirming, passionate, and grateful view of his circumstances and about his ability to survive them, then things might have turned out much differently for him. Christopher Reeve was thrown from a horse on Memorial Day in 1995, which broke his neck and left him paralyzed. He was unable to move or even breathe on his own. This was a horrible loss, and yet Christopher Reeve exercised his freedom to choose his attitude about his life and thereby did more than just cope with the experience. He died on November 10th in 2004, but in the 9 years following the accident, Christopher Reeve not only survived, but thrived, fighting for himself, for his family, and for thousands of spinal cord patients around the world. On December 8th, also in 1995, Jean-Dominique Baube, who was at the time the editor-in-chief of the French Elle magazine, suffered a stroke, and he lapsed into a coma. He awoke 20 days later, mentally aware of his surroundings, but physically paralyzed with what is known as a locked-in syndrome. Now, for him, this meant that he only had the ability to blink his eyes. And on top of that, to really, challenge his challenge already, his right eye had to be sewn because of a problem that he was having with irrigation of it. Despite the circumstances, Baobei wrote a book called The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. He wrote the entire book in the only way that he could do it, by blinking his left eyelid. This process took 10 months, 4 hours a day for 10 months. Using partner-assisted scanning, a transcriber repeatedly recited the French alphabet until Baobei blinked to choose the next letter. The book took about 200,000 blinks to write, and an average word took approximately 2 minutes. The book chronicles everyday events for a person that is experiencing this locked-in syndrome. The French edition of the book was published on March 7th, 1997. It received excellent reviews, sold the first 25,000 copies on the day of its publication, and reached 150,000 copies sold within a week. It went on to become a #1 bestseller across Europe, and its total sales are now in the millions. In Prisoners of Our Thoughts, Alex Paticos says, "It is neither proper nor possible to compare the ways in which each of these people endured unthinkable experiences. But in their presence in our lives, they represent all people who experience suffering and triumphed, each in his or her own way. These people were compelled, under uniquely dreadful circumstances, to find meaning within their imprisoned lives." Now, each of us has the freedom to choose. And we have that freedom in each and every arena of our lives. The world does not always hand us roses, but it is our choice how we react to whatever circumstances we are finding ourselves within that determines our happiness. People can take many things from us, but they can never control our thoughts, our emotions, and our behaviors. We are the ones in control of those. Only we are responsible. This is the good news, people. There is unbelievable power and freedom in that. The third dimension is the ultimate dimension of freedom, and that is spiritual freedom. This is a state of being. It is a state of consciousness, that aspect of God that we arrived on the planet with. It is knowing that we are not our body. It is knowing that we are not our mind, but rather knowing that we are pure consciousness. It is knowing that we are a divine manifestation of God, and it is knowing that we are one with freedom itself. The freedom of God, the freedom that is our birthright, is always there, but just like we need to remember the sun hiding behind the clouds is not gone, we need to remember that true freedom is never gone. We need to remember our unity with God and therefore freedom in order for it to be the experience of our lives in each and every circumstance. When an individual becomes able to really regard themselves as both one with God and as an individual expression of God, then the experience is one of freedom. Those who know their oneness with God are free. Now, Osho talks about 3 aspects or stages of freedom. The first is freedom from. Freedom from. This is a freedom that comes from breaking away from restrictions imposed by outside sources, such as parents or society or religion. Both physical and psychological freedom fall in this stage. Now, I remember very clearly my first experience of freedom from. I grew up in a family with a a very German father, and it was pretty authoritative. So I remember my first experience of freedom from, and it was my freshman year of college. I mean, the entire freshman year of college. While I went to a college that was only 90 miles away from my family home, it was more than enough geographical space to experience freedom from the rules, from the regulations, from the demands, from the schedules, and from the watchful hovering of my parents. Now, if you went to college, think about your freshman year and imagine that mine was similar. Now, while I am your minister now, I wasn't always a minister, but really was a college freshman away from my parents for the first time in my entire life. Mark is nodding. He knows what I'm talking about. The next is freedom for. Now, this takes us beyond freedom from and asks us freedom for what? This stage takes us out of the negative and into the positive aspects of freedom. The freedom to be, the freedom to express, the freedom to create, the freedom to sing our own song, the freedom to dance our own dance. Can you hear and see the subtle difference in that? Now, I also very clearly remember my first experience of conscious freedom for. It was also during my freshman year of college. However, more accurately, really during the summer between my freshman and my sophomore years. My freshman college roommate went to Alaska for the entire summer to visit with her brothers and sister who were living in Anchorage. And I really, really, really wanted to take a couple of weeks at the end of the summer to go up and visit her and her brothers and sisters and to really experience Alaska. But my parents were very much against it. I went anyway. The difference for me between freedom from and freedom for in these examples is that I never told my parents the whole truth about my college freshman experience. It was a secret. It was clandestine, on the down low. And there was a lot of against energy in it. But I did tell them about my trip to Alaska. And for me, it was the first time in my life that I used my voice, the first time in my life that I stood up for myself. It was the first time that I stood up for being an adult, the first time that I stood up for my right to choose, the first time that I stood up for my independence. So it was different. And lastly, there is just freedom, the highest and ultimate freedom, spiritual freedom. This freedom is so much more than being against something, and actually so much more than being for something. It is the freedom of simply being oneself, a unique and individualized expression of the divine. So if we go back to our original definition of freedom as being the state of being free or at liberty rather than being in confinement, I would invite us to simply stop at it is a state of being. We arrived on the planet free. Freedom has always been and will always be an inside job, an inner state of being. Freedom is who and what we are at our very core. Now, what I want everyone to hear, however, is that physical and psychological slavery are very real on the physical plane. There are many people the world over that are being held back or held down or held captive by others or by policy or by ideologies or by religious oppression. The idea of spiritual freedom is not to be used as a bypass or something to sweep the experience of being held down or held back or bound or captive or oppressed under a rug. We all need to individually and collectively do the inner and the outer work to transform these experiences, while also understanding that we will only ever truly be free when we choose to live our lives not from a space of freedom from, but from a space of freedom for, and ultimately from freedom as the underlying context or truth of who we are. As within, so without. The only way that we are going to really experience freedom is to understand that it is who we are at our very core. How many people remember the Andy Williams song, Born Free? It was the theme song for a movie by the same name. In the song, I hear three main themes based on three verses. They are born free, live free, and stay free. The words of the song begin, born free as the wind blows, as free as the grass grows. In the beginning, God, and out of that God substance came everything else, seen and unseen. Since we were created by and out of God, we have within us a divine spark, a spark that contains the allness of God. Not just a little bit here and a little bit over there, but the fullness, the wholeness, the perfection of God itself. We are made in the image and likeness of God, and like a hologram, each expression contains all aspects of the whole. There is nothing missing anywhere. What I hear in these two lines is that whatever is true of God, or whatever is true of the universe as a whole, must also be true of us. So if the wind is free, we are free. If the grass is free, then we are free. It's really just as simple as that. It could be no other way. The next line says, born free to follow your heart. On the surface level, this idea, born free to follow your heart, could simply mean to be free to follow the deepest desires of our heart. But if we take it a little bit deeper, what I know to be true is that all of our deepest desires for good in our lives are God's desires first and foremost for us. I repeat that, God's desires first and foremost for us, that it is God's good pleasure to give us the kingdom of heaven on earth. It is said, ask and it is given. This is the promise of prayer. This is what spiritual mind treatment is all about. The next verse says, live free and beauty surrounds you. The world still astounds you each time you look at a star. What I hear in this verse is that we need to sense the presence of God all around us and within us. That life is already fully expressed, whole, perfect, and complete. And that as we see this beauty, this abundance, this creativity, this wisdom, and this freedom everywhere we look, and stand in awe of it and gratitude for just how amazing it truly is, then life will flow through and as us with grace and with ease, with absolutely no resistance on our part. We will allow it. We don't need to will or to compel things to happen, but to simply know that we live in a universe that is always for us and never against us, and that all is unfolding in divine right action just as it occurs in nature. Whenever we are conscious of God or pure spirit, we are made free. Where spirit is, there is freedom. The third verse says, stay free. Where no walls divide you, you're free as the roaring tide, so there's no need to hide. What I hear in this verse is oneness. That there are no walls No separation between us and God, and no separation between us and each other. All is one. We are all part of a unified whole that interconnects all of life. We are free just like the tide when we allow the flow of life to flow through and around us. The song finishes with "Born free." And life is worth living, but only worth living 'cause you're born free. So today the invitation is to remember that we are born free, that the basis of our life is absolute freedom, to remember who and whose we are, and to see the presence of God in everything and everyone. The invitation is to live free through the conscious use of the creative process. Plant only the seeds that we choose to plant, those seeds that we wish to experience in our lives, and to relax in our awareness and belief in the way that it works. Because it does work, and because it always works in exactly the same way for everyone. The invitation is to stay free by staying connected to Source. Let loose anything that no longer serves us and stand in awe and gratitude as we allow our highest good to flow through and as us. I leave you with a quote by Ernest Holmes, who says, "The divine plan is one of freedom. Bondage is not God ordained. Freedom is the birthright of every living soul. All instinctually feel this. The truth points to freedom under the law. Thus, the inherent nature of man is forever seeking to express in terms of freedom. We do well to listen to this inner voice, for it tells of a life wonderful in its scope, of a love beyond our fondest dreams, of a freedom which the soul craves." And so it is. And so it is. I invite you to turn within, to close our outer eyes and allow our attention to move from the external world, the physical world, the world of form, and to turn inward to the spiritual side of life. It is here that I am acutely aware of the power and presence of the one life, the one love, the one heart, the one mind, the one creative energy back of everything that there is. I call this power and presence God, but it goes by many different names. But whatever name it goes by, I know that it is the very essence of love, of joy, of peace, of creativity, and of freedom. I know that I am one with it, that it is closer to me than my very breath, that there is a spark of it within me, and that I am a hologram of it, in its fullness and in its wholeness, right where I am, God is. And just as I know that this is true for me, I know that it is true for each and every person here in the sanctuary today, each and every person on Zoom, each and every person on Facebook Live, each and every sentient being on the planet. And it is from that place of unity that I speak these words about and for each of us today, truly knowing that there is a way that we can live our lives from the truth of who we are, from freedom, that God quality that we arrived on the planet with, that it is at the core of all of us, each of us, with absolutely no exception, that there is no one or no thing left out of this equation, left out of this truth, left out of this idea of freedom. The ability to live our lives as fully and as magnificently and filled with all kinds of possibility to live the life that we were created to live. To do so on our own terms, singing our own song, dancing our own dances, and to be supported in this by each other and by the universe itself, a universe that always has our back, that always says yes. I claim ease and grace for each of us around owning that, around recognizing it and aligning with it in our own lives, knowing that we live our lives from the inside out, as within, so without. That the presence of freedom within the world of form must first and foremost live within us. I claim ease and grace around all of us doing the inner work and the outer work to shift the experience of being bound or being held down or being captive. For those that are in this moment feeling that, to do the work that is required to shift that for every single person, every sentient being on the planet. And to assist each and every person to understand that freedom is truly at the bottom line an inner job, an inside job, something that we arrived on the planet with. And I'm so grateful to know this truth and to speak these words, so grateful for the power of prayer, knowing that these words are loosed into a law that only ever says yes. That my words are clothed in form even as they are spoken, and so I speak them with love and gratitude and full expectation of their manifestation, letting go and letting God be God. And I invite everyone to anchor this prayer for ourselves and for each other simply by saying, and so it is, and so it is. Amen. It is now time for our conscious giving. So I just invite everyone to take a moment to just sit in this delicious experience of gratitude for all of the abundance that we truly all have in our lives, gratitude for this thing called life itself. And to know that as we are willing to sit in this idea of gratitude, that gratitude is generative and it draws more into our lives to be grateful about. I'm grateful for these gifts, however big or small, knowing that they allow this community to continue to be a beacon of love and warmth and support in the Greater Triangle area, that they also prosper the one giving, and that they add to the idea and the experience of sufficiency on the planet. Please repeat after me. I am grateful for all that I receive, and I'm grateful for all that I may give. And so it is. Amen. The text to tithe number should be on your screen right now. If you prefer, you could use that. It's easy. And if you choose otherwise, you can always go to our website and click on the Give button in the upper right corner, and that will take you to another screen that will allow you to give your gift there. As always, I'm so very grateful for all these gifts and for the presence and the love of each and every single person in our community. It is now time to welcome back the awesome Deborah.
Somewhere over the rainbow, 'cause loved ones, once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams, oh, that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me. Yeah. Ooh. Where troubles melt like lemon drops way above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, birds fly over the rainbow. Why, oh why can't I? Someday when we are free at last, hatred and bigotry have passed behind us. We'll stand together, you and me, and spread that news across land and sea. At last, we are free. Oh, somewhere over the rainbow, we'll be free. And those dreams that we dared to dream really came to be. If bluebirds fly so wild and free at last over the rainbow, so will you and me.
Thank you so much, Deborah. If anyone would like prayer, please go to the website at trianglecsl.org. And on the home page, there's a button in the upper right-hand corner. You can click on that button and fill in the request form. And we'll get that prayer and send it out to all the ministers and practitioners who will pray over it this week. In the comfort of your own home, please stand, if you would like, for our July affirmation for the very first time. This is a call and response, so please repeat after me. Today, I choose to live a life of freedom.
Today I choose to live a life of freedom.
I choose to drop the shackles of what holds me back and ties me down.
I choose
I acknowledge that there is one power and first cause to all things.
I acknowledge that there is one power and first cause to all things.
This power expresses itself in me, through me, and as me.
This power expresses itself in me, through me, and as me.
My freedom springs from the awareness that this is the truth about me.
My freedom springs from the awareness that this is the truth about me.
I know and live in this divine freedom in every arena of my life.
I know and live in this divine freedom in every arena of my life.
I make no secret of my connection with the divine.
I make no secret of my connection with the divine.
Every day I take action to share this freedom with the world.
Every day I take action to share this freedom with the world.
I give it freely from within for the liberation of the human family.
I give it freely from within for the liberation of the human family.
My freedom is the awareness that all things live together for the good of all other things.
My freedom is the awareness that all things live together for the good of all other things
And for the greater good of life itself.
and for the greater good of life itself.
And so it is.
And so it is.
So I invite you to stick around for our closing song, but please turn within as I speak one last word of benediction. I'm just grateful for today. I'm grateful for this community coming together in this virtual way and in their physical presence here. And I'm so grateful for the message today, for the message of liberation and freedom of our souls and of our minds and of our hearts and of our bodies. So I know that as we go out, we are blessed, that we receive everything that we need, and that love walks with us every step of the way. And so it is.